It was a quiet Friday evening when Marcus Johnson walked into La Belle, Charleston's most exclusive restaurant. The crisp lines of his dark suit contrasted with his deep brown skin as he adjusted his silver tie. 20 years in the Army had given him perfect posture and an observant gaze that missed nothing. "Reservation for Johnson, 7:30, he said politely to the hostess, who glanced down at her tablet with a smile. He'd booked this table weeks ago, a special dinner to celebrate his retirement from the Special Forces after his last deployment. The small velvet box in his pocket held a silver star, awarded for valor in Afghanistan. Tonight wasn't about medals, though. It was about reconnecting with his unit, his brothers in arms who had served alongside him through 3 tours of duty. Little did he know, this wouldn't be the quiet celebration he had planned. Richard Bowman, La Belle's manager, noticed Marcus immediately. His thin lips pressed into a line as he intercepted the hostess before she could lead Marcus to his table. "I'll handle this one," Richard said, dismissing her with a flick of his wrist. He approached Marcus with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sir, do you have a reservation?" he asked, despite having just heard Marcus confirm exactly that. "Yes, Johnson for 7:30, Marcus repeated calmly. Richard made a show of checking the list. "I don't see it here. Are you sure it's for tonight?" Marcus nodded. "I confirmed yesterday. Party of 8. Richard's eyes narrowed. 8 people? For you?" The emphasis made his meaning clear. A young waiter nearby looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight between feet as he arranged water glasses. "Perhaps there's been a mistake," Richard continued, his voice rising just enough for nearby diners to notice. "This establishment has certain standards, dress code, reservation policies." Marcus remained perfectly still, his expression neutral, the same face he'd worn negotiating with tribal leaders under gunfire. "I see my name right there on your tablet," he said quietly. Richard's smile hardened. "Sir, I think you might be more comfortable somewhere else." The confrontation escalated as Richard guided Marcus away from the main dining area toward the entrance, speaking loudly enough for others to hear. "Look, we get this all the time. People claiming military service, thinking it gets some special treatment." Marcus's jaw tightened. The ring on his finger, West Point, class of 2001, caught the light. "I'm not claiming anything," he said, voice steady. "I have a reservation." Richard scoffed. "Right. And I'm sure you're some kind of war hero, too." He pointed to a small pin on Marcus's lapel, the Special Forces insignia. "You can buy those online for $20. A few diners looked away in embarrassment. Others watched with uncomfortable fascination. An elderly couple at a nearby table whispered to each other. The woman's face creased with concern. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Richard declared, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We reserve the right to refuse service." Marcus stood perfectly still, his training evident in his control. 20 years of military discipline kept his voice level, though a muscle worked in his jaw. "May I ask why?" "Let's just say you don't fit our clientele," Richard said, gesturing to Marcus's dark skin with his eyes. "And this stolen valor act isn't helping your case." The restaurant had gone silent now. Marcus felt the weight of every stare, the burn of humiliation not felt since basic training. But in war, he'd learned when to fight and when to strategize. With deliberate calm, Marcus reached into his pocket. Richard flinched, but Marcus only withdrew his phone. "I need to make a call," he said. Richard crossed his arms, smirking. "Sure, call whoever you want. Maybe they can recommend a place that's more your style." Marcus stepped aside, dialing a number he knew by heart. "Colonel Davis," he said quietly. "There's been a situation at La Belle restaurant." "No, sir, nothing dangerous. Just..." "Yes, that's right." The conversation was brief. When he finished, Marcus simply took a seat on a bench near the entrance. Richard's smirk widened. "Calling for backup?" "Sir, if you're not gone in 5 minutes, I'm calling security." Marcus checked his watch, a military-issued timepiece that had survived 3 war zones. "I'll wait," he said simply. A young black waiter approached Richard, whispering, "Sir, I checked the system. He does have a reservation. Party of 8, military retirement dinner." Richard dismissed him with a hiss. "Get back to work. I know his type." Try to come in here, making everyone uncomfortable. At precisely 7:45, the restaurant doors opened. A tall man in full army dress uniform walked in, chest decorated with multiple rows of ribbons and medals. Captain James Wilson, 5th Special Forces Group, surveyed the room until he spotted Marcus. Richard's expression faltered slightly. "Can I help you?" Before Wilson could answer, 2 more uniformed soldiers entered, a woman with lieutenant colonel insignia and a muscular man with ranger tabs. Each approached Marcus with respectful nods. "Major Johnson," Wilson said formally. "Sorry we're late, sir." Richard's smirk disappeared entirely. "Major?" The doors opened again. This time, 4 more soldiers entered, all in dress uniform, all heading straight for Marcus. The patrons began to whisper, pointing at the impressive display of medals and insignia. Then the final guest arrived. A tall, distinguished man with silver hair and the stars of a brigadier general on his shoulders. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. "Marcus," the general called warmly, extending his hand. 20 years of service, and this man saved my life twice, he announced to the room, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. Richard stood frozen, mouth slightly open, as a realization dawned. The man he'd been humiliating wasn't just any black man claiming military service. He was Major Marcus Johnson, decorated Special Forces commander, respected leader, and from the looks of it, someone deeply admired by his fellow soldiers. "Sir," the general said, turning to Richard with ice in his voice, "I believe you've been misinforming my officer about his reservation." The restaurant had gone completely silent. Richard's face had lost all color as he found himself surrounded by 8 highly decorated military officers, with decades of combined combat experience between them. I wasn't. Richard stammered. Marcus raised a hand, silencing him with the same gesture he'd used to quiet his unit in hostile territory. "This isn't about revenge," Marcus said, his voice carrying through the silent restaurant. "In 20 years of service, I've faced worse than you." The general nodded. "Major Johnson here led one of the most decorated units in Afghanistan. He's been awarded the Silver Star, Bronze Star, and Purple Heart. His leadership saved countless American and Afghan lives." Richard's eyes darted between the soldiers, taking in the reality of their presence. "All we want is to enjoy our dinner," Marcus continued, his dignity intact. "The same as anyone else in this restaurant." It wasn't a threat. It didn't need to be. The military bearing of all 8 soldiers spoke volumes. Discipline, restraint, and an unwavering commitment to doing what's right, even when faced with disrespect. "Of course," Richard whispered, all bravado gone. "Right this way." As they moved toward the dining area, Marcus stopped. "One moment," he said to Richard. "There's something I require first." Richard flinched, clearly expecting the worst. "An apology," Marcus stated simply. "Not to me, but to your staff who tried to tell you the truth, and to these diners who witnessed your behavior." Word traveled quickly. By the time Marcus and his unit were halfway through their appetizers, the restaurant owner had arrived, breathless and mortified. "Major Johnson," he said, approaching the table, "I want to personally apologize for what happened tonight. This doesn't represent our values." Marcus nodded once, accepting without fanfare. "Richard has been terminated, effective immediately." The owner continued, "And I want you to know we're implementing new training for all staff." The other diners, who had witnessed everything, began to approach the table one by one. An elderly white couple stopped to shake Marcus's hand. "Our son served in Iraq," the woman said, eyes brimming. "Thank you for your service." A young black family with a teenage boy lingered nearby. Marcus noticed the boy's wide eyes fixed on the medals and insignia around the table. He motioned them over. "Thinking about service?" Marcus asked the teenager. "Yes, sir," the boy replied, "but I wasn't sure if—" Marcus smiled. "The uniform doesn't care what you look like. It cares what you're made of." By evening's end, the restaurant had transformed. What began as a scene of humiliation had become a powerful reminder of respect, dignity, and the true measure of character. As Marcus and his team finally left the restaurant, the night air carried a sense of something significant. This wasn't just about one racist manager or one dignified response. It was about the ongoing battle for respect, fought not with weapons, but with unwavering dignity. Marcus often told his soldiers, "We don't just fight wars overseas. Sometimes the most important battles happen right here at home." That night proved his point. The uniform represented sacrifice and service, but respect had to be earned anew each day, in restaurants, in courtrooms, in everyday America. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wished for such a powerful reversal? Share your story in the comments below. If this reminds you of someone who stood with dignity against prejudice, tag them or share this video. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories of justice served with honor and integrity. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below.